Hey everybody. Today I want to talk about a little bit about um, you know, human psychology, and maybe not I may not have answers in this, but it's just something interesting to talk about. It's something that a client and I were talking about yesterday, and just how people operate. And there's the cat. Ugh, there's Caesar. Um, so we were talking about a mutual friend of ours who, had done some personal training in the past, uh, but couldn't stick with it. And this is also something that I'm noticing in uh, someone else who's, doing some training on their own, and uh, they're they have not yet. It's been a week, and they haven't exercised. Now they do other stuff outside of the weight room, um, but the training has not strength training is not something that they have gotten to yet. And so we were talking about this phenomenon, and it's something that I actually compared to Borders and them. You know, people are much more interested in these fixing something like when it happens, as opposed to preventing something from happening in the first place. So for example, it's really hard to think about I'm if I exercise now, I will feel better in the future, and my health will be better in the future. And it's this idea of your future self versus your your present self. And your present self almost always wins out because that's the one that's with you right now. Whereas your future self, what you're working towards is kind of nebulous. Oh yeah, it might happen at some point in the future, but then again, it might not. And I might be fine without doing any exercising. I might be, uh, but then again, I might not. But that's in the future, and it's not something that's like here and now, and uh, you know that you're really thinking about currently. So so for example, you might take that. Um, there's a donut sitting in front of you, and your future self is going, well, if you eat that, it may not make you feel good. If you do it on a regular basis, that's a recipe for putting on body fat, for increasing blood cholesterol levels, that stuff. Whereas your current self is like, your present self is, well, it's going to taste really good right now. And more often than not, your present self wins out. Um, and so we were talking about this, and people are more interested in doing something that's easier, like taking a medication, um, to rather than going and working out. Because popping a pill is a lot easier than spending an hour or two in the gym every week. Um, so they don't want to do that hard thing to better their future selves. And I'm trying to, it's a little bit difficult to explain, but one way, I kind of, this is where like comparing it to the Borders comes in, is a lot of people, at least in this area, they don't want to spend a whole lot of money on board. It's too expensive, and there's some economic issues that come along with that. But they say, like, I don't want to pay more than X amount. But when you have like costs of bedding and hay and all of that, and then they get annoyed that like, well, you're not feeding my horse enough. Well, you're not putting enough bedding in the stall. Well, you're not doing these things. You're not spending the time to do such and such, when, time costs money as well, especially if you have employees that are working for you. But they don't want to pay the extra money to get those things. They want to complain that they don't have those things for basically free, or not free, but that they're paying a low amount that doesn't cover the costs. And they'd rather complain about it and then pay the vet bills when their horse injures itself, or when it's got ulcers because, the hay, they didn't have enough forage. When the owner of the barn couldn't afford to give more flakes of hay to the horse because the owner wasn't paying enough to cover the cost of that hay. So, and that's kind of like, it's kind of the same thing with people in their own health. They'd rather pay for the issue when it arises rather than pay to prevent the issue in the first place. When preventing the issue in the first place, the payment for that is going to be less than paying for the issue when it arises. So, and that's, the future self and the present self. You'd rather pay for the present self when the issue is in the present, rather than pay for to prevent that thing happening to the future self. So it was just kind of an interesting conversation that we were having. How do you get through to people that this is an important thing? And especially when the economy is the way it is, and, a luxury service like personal training, when it's your health and not necessarily, but when people are having a hard time paying for groceries, you can understand why, paying for something like personal training is going to be tough, but then you run into people who they then say, okay, well, I'm going to pay a lesser amount and I'll do it on my own. And then they end up not doing it on their own. And they need that accountability. And that's part of what they pay for when they pay you as a personal trainer, is to have that accountability. Like, they have to show up, they have to come here, and I can't do the work for them. They have to do the work themselves. I can't do the work and then, magically their body is better. They have to put in that work. And that's a tough sell. It's really a tough sell. That's just kind of, we were discussing this yesterday, and just how difficult it is. And she runs into the same thing, a similar thing in her line of work too. So it's this, but it always comes back to the future self and the present self, and the battle between those two, and how how they battle within you, like how much stock you put into each one. And I certainly have my battles with my present self all the time, especially when it comes to like sweets, like the donut thing, like the donut example that I gave. I have that, and something that my client said that she does. She's like, I've gotten to the point where if I put something in my mouth and it's not worth having put it there, I spit it out. And I was like, wow, that's not something that's not a place that I have gotten to yet. I'm still in this spot where I put something in my mouth and it's not worth it, but I committed to eating it. And then I still eat it, even if I don't necessarily want to. And I'm going, well, this isn't really that good. And maybe I need to get to that point as well, where, if something's not worth the effort of eating it, it doesn't taste good enough, and it's something I probably shouldn't be eating anyway, I'm just gonna spit it out from now on. And she gave me that inspiration. So anyway, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, and it is difficult. It is difficult. I get it. You know, I have my own battles with those things. Not being able to track my calories and my macros is another one of those another one of those battles that I have to fight. And we also talked about making things a habit, and that is a way to help combat that battle with your present self, is to make working out, make these things habits instead of relying on motivation. I think I've talked about this in past videos. Instead of relying on motivation, which is an emotion, and emotions don't stick around. What sticks around is making it habit. And if you make it a habit, then it just happens. You just do it. It's like brushing your teeth. You just brush your teeth. It's a habit. And it takes about, I think studies have said it takes about 2 or 3 months to make something a habit. So if you stick with it and do it regularly and say, okay, I'm going to do this for the next 3 months. And if you can make it through those 3 months, then it becomes a habit. And then you'd rather do it than not. It's not even really a matter of choice. You just kind of do it. And that's kind of what my working out and riding is at this point as well. You know, I definitely have had my days, and I had one a couple of weeks ago where it was cold, it was rainy, I was really tired, I hadn't slept well. And I was talking to one of my clients, a different client, and, you know, I'm like, I just really don't feel like riding today. And she's like, well, don't, and we were kind of talking about it, and I went inside and I was like, yeah, I'm just going to lay around. And I started to, and then I was like, no, I've got to ride. I just have to ride. So, and it's not that I don't have my days where I just don't, but that day, the habit kicked in and I did it. I rode anyway, even though I really, really, really didn't feel like it. And working out is sometimes like that as well. So yeah, think about, when you're thinking about what you want to do that's better for you as opposed to worse for you, think about that, like future self and present self. And also think about, when you want to get into doing something like working out, don't rely on the motivation that you're feeling in the moment, and set a goal for yourself to make it a habit. And like I said, that's about 3 months. And you have to be diligent about it. You have to be routine. You can't just like be skipping workouts through those 3 months. You have to be really regimented about it, and then it's there. And especially with, this is going to go on for way too long, so I'll end it there. But try to set those goals for yourself and see if you can make working out a habit and help your future self win more than your present self. So anyway, I hope that, maybe inspired some of you, maybe helped you out a little bit. If you liked this, hit the like button, subscribe, share this, and I will see you all tomorrow. It will be Friday, so a Farm Friday. Bye.